Welcome to Moments in History channel. 1,000 days. 1,000 days. It's a milestone nobody wanted to see, yet here we are. The Russia-Ukraine war, a conflict that has reshaped our world, just passed this grim anniversary. It began with the world holding its breath on February 24, 2022, as Russian forces launched a full-scale invasion. The plan seemed clear: a lightning-fast strike to capture Kyiv, overthrow the government, and bring Ukraine firmly back into Russia's sphere of influence. But what was supposed to take days, maybe weeks, has now stretched into a saga of resistance, resilience, and relentless warfare. So today, let's take a step back and look at the first 1,000 days of this war. How it started, how it evolved, and how it has changed not just two nations, but the entire global landscape. The initial hours of the invasion were pure shock and awe. Missiles rained down on cities across Ukraine, and columns of tanks rolled across the border from the north, east, and south. The primary target was the capital, Kyiv. The infamous 40-mile-long convoy heading towards the city became a symbol of Russia's seemingly overwhelming might. The world watched, expecting the city to fall within 72 hours. But then something incredible happened. Ukraine didn't just fold. The Ukrainian military, underestimated by many, mounted a fierce and surprisingly effective defense. Ordinary citizens joined territorial defense units, making Molotov cocktails in city parks and setting up makeshift barricades. Videos of Ukrainian farmers towing away abandoned Russian tanks became viral symbols of a nationwide resistance. The battles for Kyiv, Chernihiv, and Sumy in the north were brutal. Russian paratroopers attempted to seize Hostomel Airport, a key gateway to the capital, but were met with ferocious counterattacks. In the streets of cities like Kharkiv, Ukrainian forces engaged Russian troops in close-quarters combat, halting their advance block by block. The initial Russian strategy, which relied on speed and shock, quickly unraveled in the face of this determined resistance and significant logistical failures. By the end of March 2022, the offensive on Kyiv had stalled. In early April, in a major strategic shift, Russia announced a withdrawal from the regions around Kyiv and northern Ukraine. What they left behind was horrifying. As Ukrainian forces and journalists entered liberated towns like Bucha and Irpin, they discovered evidence of widespread atrocities and war crimes, shocking the world and galvanizing international support for Ukraine. The battle for Kyiv was over, and Ukraine had won the first critical phase of the war. With the northern front abandoned, the conflict's center of gravity shifted dramatically to the east and south. Russia refocused its efforts on a single, massive objective: capturing the entire Donbas region, composed of Luhansk and Donetsk oblasts, and securing a land bridge to Crimea, which it had annexed in 2014. This new phase was a different kind of war. It wasn't about rapid maneuvers anymore. It was a grinding, brutal war of attrition dominated by artillery. The industrial heartland of Ukraine became a landscape of ruined cities and trench warfare, drawing grim comparisons to World War I. The port city of Mariupol became the epicenter of this new phase. For weeks, the city was relentlessly bombarded. The siege of the Azovstal steel plant, where the last Ukrainian defenders held out in a labyrinth of underground tunnels, captured the world's attention. The eventual fall of Mariupol in May 2022 was a strategic victory for Russia, but it came at a devastating cost, leaving the once thriving city in ruins. Throughout the summer, Russian forces made slow, costly gains, capturing the cities of Sievierodonetsk and Lysychansk, which gave them control over nearly all of Luhansk. It seemed like the sheer weight of Russian firepower was slowly, inexorably crushing Ukrainian defenses. But just as the situation looked its bleakest, Ukraine launched a stunning counteroffensive in September 2022. It was a masterclass in military deception and execution. While the world's attention was focused on an anticipated Ukrainian push in the south near Kherson, the main strike came in the northeast, in the Kharkiv region. Ukrainian forces punched through thinly held Russian lines, advancing dozens of kilometers in a matter of days. The speed of the collapse was breathtaking. Russian troops, caught completely by surprise, abandoned vast amounts of equipment and fled in disarray. In less than a week, Ukraine had reclaimed thousands of square kilometers of territory, liberating key cities like Izium and Kupiansk. It was a spectacular victory that not only boosted Ukrainian morale, but also proved that Ukraine could do more than just defend. It could win. Energized by the success in Kharkiv, Ukraine kept up the pressure. The focus now shifted to the south, to the city of Kherson, the only regional capital Russia had managed to capture since the invasion began. Positioned on the west bank of the Dnipro River, the Russian garrison in Kherson was increasingly vulnerable. Ukraine used newly supplied Western long-range artillery, like the HIMARS systems, to methodically destroy bridges and supply lines, slowly strangling the Russian forces. By November 2022, Russia's position became untenable. In another major humiliation, Moscow announced a regrouping and withdrew all its troops from the west bank of the Dnipro, including the city of Kherson. Residents poured into the streets, celebrating their liberation and waving Ukrainian flags. By the end of 2022, Ukraine had successfully executed 2 major counteroffensives, rewriting the map of the war. The winter of 2022 and into 2023 saw the war transform yet again. Russia, reeling from its battlefield defeats, adopted a new and cruel strategy. Targeting Ukraine's critical infrastructure, a relentless campaign of missile and drone strikes aimed to destroy power plants, heating facilities, and water supplies, plunging the country into darkness and cold during the harsh winter months. This was a war against the civilian population, designed to break their will to resist. But again, it didn't work. Ukrainians adapted, relying on generators, power banks, and a powerful sense of community to endure. Meanwhile, on the front lines, the fighting congealed into a bloody stalemate, particularly around the city of Bakhmut in the Donetsk region. For months, Russian forces, heavily reliant on mercenaries from the Wagner Group, threw wave after wave of soldiers at the city in human wave attacks. Bakhmut became a meat grinder, a symbol of the war's senseless brutality, where thousands died for meters of ground. Russia eventually claimed control of the ruined city in May 2023, but the cost was astronomical, and its strategic value was highly debated. As 2023 progressed, both sides prepared for the next major phase. Russia spent months building vast, multi-layered defensive fortifications across the occupied south, known as the Surovikin Line, a complex network of trenches, minefields, and anti-tank obstacles. In the summer of 2023, Ukraine launched its long-awaited major counteroffensive, aiming to break through these lines and sever the land bridge to Crimea. But this time, progress was painfully slow. Unlike the lightning advance in Kharkiv, Ukrainian forces now faced some of the most heavily fortified positions in modern history. The fight became a slow, methodical grind, with small units trying to clear minefields and trenches under constant artillery and drone attack. Throughout 2023 and into 2024, the character of the war was increasingly defined by technology. This became the first major war of the drone age. Small, cheap FPV drones, operated by individual soldiers, became ubiquitous, used for reconnaissance, artillery spotting, and as kamikaze weapons to attack trenches and vehicles. At the same time, long-range systems played a crucial role. Ukraine used British Storm Shadow and French Scalp missiles to strike high-value Russian targets deep behind the front lines, command posts, ammunition depots, and air bases. The Black Sea Fleet, once a dominant force, was repeatedly hit, forcing it to relocate many of its ships from its historic base in Sevastopol, Crimea. The Kerch Bridge, the vital link connecting Russia to Crimea, was attacked multiple times, symbolizing Ukraine's ability to strike at the heart of Russia's logistical network. Throughout these 1,000 days, international support has been a lifeline for Ukraine. The United States, the United Kingdom, and European Union countries have provided tens of billions of dollars in military and financial aid. This support has evolved from basic anti-tank weapons at the start of the war to advanced systems like Patriot air defense batteries, Leopard and Abrams main battle tanks, and eventually F-16 fighter jets. Sanctions on an unprecedented scale were imposed on Russia, aiming to cripple its economy and war machine. This conflict also re-energized NATO, with traditionally neutral Finland and Sweden joining the alliance, redrawing the security map of Europe. But this support has also faced challenges, with political debates and delays in aid delivery creating uncertainty and impacting Ukraine's capabilities on the battlefield. The human cost, for both sides, has been immense. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers have been killed or wounded. Millions of Ukrainians have been displaced from their homes, becoming refugees either within their own country or abroad. The economic toll has been staggering, with Ukraine's economy decimated and Russia's reoriented to a war footing, straining its long-term prospects. As we look back on these 1,000 days, it's clear this war has defied all early predictions. It's a story of a nation's unbreakable will to fight for its existence against overwhelming odds. It's a story of a global power struggle, with democratic nations rallying against aggression. But it's also a story of immense suffering and loss, a tragedy that continues to unfold with no clear end in sight. For the Russian soldiers, the initial sprint for Kyiv has turned into a marathon of attrition. The front lines may not be moving much, but below the surface, the war is constantly evolving, driven by new technologies, shifting strategies, and the unwavering determination of the Ukrainian people. The next chapter is unwritten, but the first 1,000 days have already left an indelible mark on the 21st century. Thanks for watching, and if you found this breakdown informative, please like and subscribe to Moments in History channel for more in-depth analysis.